You are standing in your kitchen. You look down at your dog and ask a simple, everyday question. Do you want to go for a walk? Instantly, they freeze. Their eyes widen. They lock their gaze onto yours. And then, they do it. The tilt. To the casual observer, this is the universal canine symbol for bewilderment. We look at that cocked head and we immediately think, I have absolutely no idea what you are saying. But what if we've had it completely backward this entire time? That head tilt? It's not confusion, it's intelligence. Recent breakthroughs utilizing artificial intelligence, facial coding software, and advanced comparative cognition show that we have been completely misreading our dogs. Your dog isn't baffled by you, they are actively decoding you. And to understand how, we have to look at what is happening underneath the skin. To prove just how wrong the confusion myth is, we have to look at a 2021 study involving a very specific, elite group of animals known as gifted word learners. These are the canine prodigies, dogs that have demonstrated the ability to memorize the specific names for dozens, sometimes hundreds of different physical toys. Researchers wanted to know what happens in the brain of a genius dog when a human speaks compared to a typical, untrained household dog. So, they tested them. They asked both groups of dogs to go fetch a specific toy purely by its name. Look at this data. The results were staggering. When the typical dogs heard a word they didn't really know, they almost never tilted their heads. They clocked in at a mere 2% of the time. But the gifted word learners, the dogs that actually knew the vocabulary, they tilted their heads 43% of the time. Think about what this means. The dogs that understood language the best tilted their heads the most. The tilt doesn't mean your dog is failing to understand. In neuroscience, this is referred to as cross-modal cognitive matching. In plain English, they are aggressively searching their memory bank, trying to match the sound of your voice to a mental image. If you've ever laughed when your dog tilts their head, you weren't watching them be confused. You were watching them think. But that's not even the strangest part. Because if you watch your dog closely, you'll notice a hidden pattern. Here is where it gets weird. If you have a dog that tilts their head frequently, I want you to pay close attention to the direction they rotate. Overwhelmingly, dogs possess what researchers call a right tilt bias. They have a favored side, and they will consistently tilt in that exact same direction regardless of where you are standing in the room. If this was just a random quirk, it would be a 50-50 split. To find out why it isn't, a massive 2023 study deployed an AI wireframe to map the micro-movements of a dog's facial muscles. What they found takes us directly into the architecture of the canine brain. Just like humans, dogs possess hemispheric brain lateralization. Their brains partition different tasks to the left and right sides. Studies show that a dog's right brain fires up when processing intense emotions or terrifying sounds like a thunderstorm. But the left brain? The left brain is dedicated to processing familiar, meaningful human speech. Because of how the nervous system is wired, the left hemisphere of the brain controls the right side of the body. When you speak to your dog in a familiar tone and use a word they recognize, their left auditory cortex lights up. That intense neural activation creates a physical reflex. It pulls their head to the right, almost like a biological puppet string. You aren't just watching a cute trick. You are watching the left hemisphere of their brain actively decode human language in real time. But the brain is only half the story, because your dog also has a mechanical problem. Your dog has incredible hearing. They can detect frequencies far beyond human capability. But their own anatomy gets in the way. Many dogs have heavy, pendulous ear flaps, called pinnae. Those flaps physically muffle incoming sound waves. To compensate, the dog has to recalibrate. By tilting their skull, they alter the microsecond delay it takes for a sound wave to hit one ear versus the other. They are using their head as a biological radar dish to pinpoint the exact source of your voice. But it's not just about hearing. They are likely tilting their head simply to see you. I want you to try something. Make a fist and hold it directly in front of your nose. Look straight ahead. Notice how your hand creates a massive blind spot blocking the lower half of your vision? That is what your dog sees every single day. Their pronounced muzzle creates a huge central blind spot. Dogs rely heavily on reading human facial expressions, specifically our eyes and our lips, to gauge our intent. But if a long-snouted dog looks straight at you, their own nose physically blocks their view of your mouth. A survey of over 500 dogs proved this morphological link. Dogs with long snouts tilted their heads 75% of the time when spoken to. Dogs with flat, compacted faces, like pugs, whose noses don't block their vision, only tilted their heads 50% of the time. By tilting their head 30 degrees to the side, your dog is actively clearing their visual field just so they can see your face. So, they are pulling files from their memory, aiming their ears, and clearing their vision. But where did this highly specific behavior actually come from? Did they inherit it from wolves? Actually, no. Behavioral tests comparing domestic dogs to human-reared wolves show a stark contrast. Even when raised identically by humans, wolves do not exhibit the specific communicative head tilt when we speak to them. This behavior is an evolutionary bridge created purely by domestication. Over the last 15,000 years, humans engaged in rigorous artificial selection. We are deeply, biologically wired to respond to pedomorphic, or puppy-like features: wide eyes, attentive postures, vulnerability. When an ancestral dog tilted its head to adjust its hearing, it inadvertently mimicked the human posture for empathetic listening. It hijacked our caregiving instincts. Evolutionary biologists have shown that shelter dogs who utilize these puppy-like expressions, including the head tilt, are adopted significantly faster than those who don't. The dogs that tilted their heads got the food. They got the shelter. They got the affection. What began as a wild animal's acoustic radar calibration evolved into a highly specialized interspecies survival hack. They learned to speak our emotional language. But before you go testing this out on your dog, there is one critical warning you need to hear. Your dog doesn't have language. Behavior is their only way to tell you something is wrong. A healthy, cognitive head tilt is temporary. It happens when you speak, and then their head returns to a normal, upright position. But if your dog develops a persistent, continuous head tilt that does not go away when the room is quiet, that is not a cognitive quirk. It is a critical medical warning sign. Veterinary neurologists classify a permanent tilt as a primary sign of vestibular disease. This occurs when the delicate structures of the inner ear, or the brainstem itself, become compromised due to infection or trauma. The dog literally loses their spatial orientation with respect to gravity. If a permanent tilt is accompanied by stumbling, a profound loss of balance, or rapid, involuntary jerking movements of the eyes, do not wait. This is deeply disorienting for the animal, and it requires immediate veterinary intervention. But for the vast majority of the time, when you look down at your dog and they cock their head to the side, you don't need to worry. And you definitely don't need to assume they are confused. When your dog tilts their head, you are witnessing an absolute marvel of evolution. You are watching an animal physically bypass the limitations of its own ears and its own eyes just to see your face and hear your voice more clearly. They aren't baffled by you. They are dedicating their biology to understanding you. Click the video on your screen, because what your dog does next is even stranger. See you there.